Hi. Today I want to talk a little bit about the different styles of training, okay? Because this is a question that I get asked all the time. People come into the gym and I might be giving them a tour or just showing them around or just explaining, how to exercise, or at least loosely how to exercise, or what they should focus on. People will often ask me, how many reps should I do? How many sets should I do? I think it's a good question. It's a question that I asked at one point because I had no clue how many sets or how many reps I should be performing for each movement. I wasn't even really sure how many movements I should be doing or what movements I should be doing. So I won't talk about every single facet of what you should be doing, because it's going to be goal dependent, as are reps and sets. But let's just address reps and sets for a second, okay? So the first thing we have to think about is the goal. We need to keep the goal in mind, okay? Because the goal is going to determine how many reps and how many sets we need to be doing, okay? There are really only three main ways to train. The first category is going to be training purely for strength, okay? So that means the goal in mind is to get stronger. And a lot of times when people are trying to get stronger, they're generally trying to get stronger in a very few amount of compound lifts. So the big three. The big three are gonna be squats, deadlifts, and bench press. So that's gonna be more in the powerlifting realm. So if your goal is to really just get stronger, you're trying to increase weight on your squat, your deadlift, or your bench press, then you're going to be training in anywhere between the 1 and 6 rep range, okay? And as far as how many sets you should do, it completely depends. Sometimes strength protocols are gonna call for you to do a lot of sets, so you might do 5 sets of 3, 5 sets of 5, that's really popular, 5 sets of 1. And you might even go beyond that, or you might even scale it back a little bit. So if you're doing a heavy deadlift day, you might do 3 working sets after you've warmed up a little bit, all the way up to 6 and 8 sets, okay? So it can get you can kind of get in the weeds there as far as like how to get stronger. But over time, if you are training purely for strength, the goal is to get stronger, okay? So it doesn't make sense to do rep ranges of 15 and 20 if your goal is just to get stronger, okay? So the second category is gonna be the one that I implement the most with my clients. It's gonna be the category that makes sense for most of the general population, because the general population usually falls under a general fitness category. So that type of person is gonna be training for hypertrophy. So hypertrophy just means that you're burning body fat and you're gaining a little bit of lean tissue, okay? So that's going to be most people. And the rep range for that type of training is going to be usually about 8 to 15 repetitions. So let's say you're doing overhead press and you can only do 6 reps because that's how heavy it is. Well, then if you're training for hypertrophy, that you probably need to scale your weight back a little bit, because you need to be doing at least 8 to 15, okay? For hypertrophy, you're going to do anywhere between 3 and 5 sets of a movement. Okay, so that's the second category. So the third category is going to be training for muscular endurance, okay? So this is a very specific mode of training, just like training for strength is and training for hypertrophy can be. So muscular endurance is going to be lots of repetitions, so anywhere between 15 and 20 all the way up to 100. You might have a set of 100. And a lot of times when you're training for muscular endurance, you're going to be doing a lot of circuits. So circuit is a movement that you just do 3 or more times and you just go back to back to back. So you might start with overhead press and then go straight to push-ups and then right into bicep curls and then maybe kettlebell swings for a Metcon movement or something. That would be 1 round. So those 4 movements you just do back to back to back, and that would be 1 round. So you might do 3 rounds of that. So that's kind of high volume. So that's going to be muscular endurance, and your weight is going to be fairly conservative because you're trying to put your body through a lot of punishment. You're trying to increase what your muscles can endure, hence the name muscular endurance. So those are the 3 categories, and a lot of times, based on how you're training, that's going to be telling you what your weight should be. Okay, so if you know what your goal is and you know what your mode of training is, then you're going to figure out through trial and error what your weight should be. Okay, and then week to week you can increase your weight, subtly and incrementally, because that's how the body responds best, incrementally and subtle changes over time. You don't want to increase your weight too much week to week, but that's not the only way you can increase your overload as well. So let's say you're doing 4 sets of an exercise one week and you want to increase your volume the following week. We'll just do 5 sets. Or you could do 4 sets of 10 one week and then do 4 sets of 12 the following week. That would be considered an increase in your overall volume. So that's going to be progressive overload over time. And progressive overload is important because that's how your body adapts and responds.